The waves are tiny. You're jonesing for a shred. Which board do you choose? Are you going the classic longboard? Literally made to ride crap surf? Or are you in that new school thought and you want that Groveler? So you can squeeze out every teeny bit of performance possible. Now, this is an age-old debate, and I'm in both sides of it. The last few years, I've definitely been more so on, I'm grabbing the longboard when those waves suck. But a recent swing of events in surfboard culture has brought back the classic super grovelly fish type board. And it's got me thinking, it is quite fun to grovel around on super crappy waves with that smaller board. But my body, my back, my surfer's neck, everything else, my pride, or lack thereof, I guess, because that's the board we should be riding when it's small. How come we just don't all gravitate to riding that trusty longboard when the waves are crappy? Why are we obsessed with being in the cool club? We want to shred that mega groveler. Again, I think it has to do a lot with surfboard advertising. Now, I don't necessarily think it's as big of a gap as it used to be, but back in the day, a lot of people, they would just ride shortboards or they would just ride longboards. They wouldn't really go in between. I was kind of similar growing up. I had my shortboards, some fishes. You don't longboard. That's not a thing I do. Well, fast forward to, trying to surf as much as possible, no matter what, the conditions, etc. And throw in, maybe the waves close out a bunch. Maybe it's always small. Maybe you are kind of injured and you just want to be able to surf and have fun and not worry about, am I going to catch enough waves? Is it going to be as fun as it would be if I rode the longboard? Now, that's why I think that everyone should get used to and should really practice riding both of these boards, because then you're going to let the day and how you feel dictate what board you're going to ride. You're not going to force a session on a board that you shouldn't be on. Perfect point was today I did have the great chance, and you guys are going to be seeing this soon, to get another go at that Machado Cado. And boy, was it sweet. And this time I got a bunch of footage. So I am very nice, stoked on that. But the waves were as bad as it gets for SoCal. It can be dead flat at SoCal, but it's usually at breaks that never break. This was a break that does break kind of often, and it was as bad as it gets. And I had the Machado Cado 510, 37-ish liters. It's a groveler. And I was having just as much fun as you could probably have on that board in the smallest waves possible. Now, if I did have the longboard, or even this is where mid-length come in, I would have caught probably more waves. I would have probably made more sections. And that's kind of the whole thing, is once you realize that, oh, wow, I can actually go faster on this longboard. I can actually turn a turn better on this longboard on a small wave. I don't get it. There is a slight learning curve to riding the bigger longboards. Now, this is also probably why I do like to ride, beefier shortboards, because I got so used to riding a bigger longboard type board when, shout out Venice Beach. I lived in Venice Beach, and it's king of the closeouts. It is closeout city. You're living in closeoutville. Breakwater, shout out Breakwater. It's a fun break. Very nice people there. Every once in a while you'll get a corner, but for the most part it breaks kind of right by here by the rocks. It breaks over here, and it'll close out quick. You can get some good lefts that go towards the jetty that they will kind of, just depending on the tide, but if it's a lower tide, you're living in closeout city. I talked about this the other day with the longboard. You know, take the wave, you do a hit, and then you can just fin to the shore. With the groveler, depending on how grovelly it is, you can or can't do that. But you're still gonna go faster on the longer board. You're gonna plane better. You're gonna actually turn, and that turn's gonna feel better. So that's kind of why, like, I think everyone should add the longboard to their quiver, the groveler, and this were really the merger of the best of both worlds is the mid length, the Seaside and Beyond, your Channel Islands twin pin. I think there's some new Firewire designs that are kind of mid lengthy. That kind of merges the best of both worlds. Now, real quick tidbit before I continue on, like there's a kind of a funny length in the mid length game. Whereas depending on your height, you need to think about where your feet are actually going to hang off or on the board. Now, I didn't really think about this too much until I have a 7-foot Seaside and Beyond. The board's awesome, but the one kind of crappy part about it that makes me sometimes not ride it is that it my ankles literally sit right at the end where like it hits. So right where it hits, the board stops, my feet kind of like hit right on the end. So when you kick, you just kick the back of the board, or even when you rest your feet, they kind of rest on the board. So you have to kind of just get used to not resting your feet or being wary of never kicking. It's actually like kind of a big pain in the butt. And again, you don't think about this until you're out in the lineup riding the board for the first time. So you want to see how big you are. To feel like 5'10-ish, 5'11 like me, it's kind of danger zone in that 6'8 to 7'2 realm. So just be wary of, like, when you get this mid-length board, try to size it right to whether your feet are on the board, you have just enough room where you're not going to like kick the swallowtail or kick the back. Or if you kind of know what I'm talking about, you're just used to that and it's par for the course. So, but that's why, like, if you go at least 8 foot and up on the longboard, you actually can rest your feet on the board. And that actually helps a lot. It helps with extra float. It helps you like rest more. I think it also helps a lot with just the board going more on a crappy wave. Say you have an 8-foot board, 50 liters, and a 6'6" board, 50 liters. The 8-foot board's still going to like go better and plow through whitewater chunder, plow through chop better than the 6'6", because the 6'6" is just going to be less length. And the longer the board, the faster and the more plowy it's going to go through the board. So that is kind of why you always want to have like the long board, the grovelers, a short board. I know the money stacks up. This is why you can end up buying used if you want to start experimenting. But really, the days are long gone where you're going to get shamed for kind of like riding this longer board. It probably depends on the spot as well. I'm sure maybe if you paddle at trestles on like a wave storm, you might, get some heat from the loc dogs. But I think nowadays people see these guys riding mid lengths. They see these longboarders. When I grew up, there was this one guy, Adrian, shout out. He always was like sick at the longboard and rode like a shortboard. And he would just literally ride this thing like a big shortboard. And that's kind of how I mimic when I ride a longboard. I like to ride it like a shortboard. I like to do big turns and big roundhouses. And for me, that's like, it ends up being like just a really big grovelly board. So that's why it's always good to have the option. But let me know, what do y'all think? Do you prefer the super groveler and like you'll never touch a mid length or a longboard, or are you right away gonna grab the old longboard, old leggy bottoms and hit the surf? Because like there'll even be times, like a lot of times Tommy Surf talks about this, like let your body kind of dictate what you want to ride. Like today you're kind of beat up, oh, just ride the bigger board. Like why are you gonna do that to yourself? Oh, you're like feeling like you're good to go today, like you drank that espresso, like you're full of like piss and vinegar, like let's do this, conquer the world. Then you can grab the groveler and go like shred to your heart's desire. And I feel like it works out really good as well when there's like back-to-back days and they're all maybe kind of small or it's just a mismatch of days. That's when it really shines. Like today I rode the Machado Cotto. Tomorrow, if it's small again, I'd probably want to ride the longboard to give my body a little break. and the next day I'll be ready for the mashup. It's really nice to have like kind of those options and to have the skill level and ability to do that. You should know and practice how to get better on a longboard, how to get better on a smaller board. Don't look at the size charts, and don't look at like your friends that are like maybe they're okay, they're intermediates, and they're riding like the exact dimensions that it says on their chart, and they think they're doing everything right, but they're not surfing as good as kind of they're claiming. Like foam's always going to be your friend. Like until you get to a certain point and you like are still young enough to like want to go for this, like you're always going to like have more foam. And especially when it's crappy waves, like it's rare going to be like, man, I wish I didn't have like as much foam for these like thigh to waist-high waves. It's always nice to have that extra paddle power and to be catching tons of waves on a crappy day. The worst thing is when you paddle out on a crappy day and your board is sinking and you don't have enough get up and go for the crappy waves. Because really, on the crappiest of crappy waves, what's the most important is that get up and go, is that when the wave's cresting, you getting into the wave. Because there's such a lack of wave, you don't have enough board to propel you. It doesn't matter how sick the board is. There's not enough wave, not enough board. You're not going to get up and go. You have a wave storm and a little wave comes, you start paddling. It's so much buoyancy and so much volume. It's going to start moving and like a freight train, just go. So that's why it's like always better to understand that like if I get better at longboarding or better at riding more foam, when the waves are trash, I'm going to be catching more waves than all my friends because I got like slightly more board, etc. And they're riding like 5'4" Grovelers that in the end like aren't really made for like knee-high waves. Like they call them Grovelers because your daily driver is kind of a Groveler, but like no one wants to say a board isn't going to ride good in like crappy surf unless it's like a pencil potato chip. A company is, it's going to be hard to market a board just for like good waves. So they got to at least like have a claim that you can still ride pretty crappy waves in it and not be like a total wash. You'll see on a lot of the charts that say what the board's for, it's rare they're going to like not at least have a little bit of the 2 to 3 foot shaded. Like companies want you to ride the board in smaller surf as well. Like these are expensive boards. Like we can't all have this one huge quiver that like has each like category of wave in it. So like if you have some like board just for the sickest waves ever, like how often are you going to ride that board? I mean, if you live in at Uluwatu, you might get to ride it every day. But even in like a place like Southern California where like people around here don't understand that the waves are sick here. There's always some wave somewhere. Like, but it usually isn't the best. It usually is like a good East Coast day. So it's good to have like gravelly boards. And if a company only has a board made for like sick waves, how's it going to sell in a market where it's mostly not every day super sick? So, all right, guys, I thought that'd be a fun kind of deep dive for today, just to see what y'all think as well. Do you prefer just like the mega graveler when the waves are smaller? Do you grab the wave storm and just hit it? I'm interested to see what you guys think because I think times are changing, and now it's cool to ride mid lengths. So I think the floodgates are open, and now we can all ride boards actually made for the waves that are present for the day. So I appreciate everyone tuning in for another Hero's Journey show. Till next time, peace.